Rodgers deep for Nebraska. Here's Wiley's kick. It's high. It holds up there. Rodgers takes the ball at the 30. He's hit and got away. Back upfield to the 35, to the 40. He's to the 45. He's to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, to the 20, to the 10. He's all the way home.
Well, I was always aware that people were quite a bit bigger. I had the impression, though, that I had an advantage because they were bigger. I didn't, it was never a matter of fear. You know, as I grew older, I seen that fear was false evidence appearing real. It was just an illusion. It was just as much, I always thought that they were more nervous of me than I was of them. It really wasn't until after I stopped playing football, that I really noticed that there was really a significant difference.
First time I saw Johnny, he was the littlest youngster in a group of about 15 boys, and contrary to popular belief, Johnny really wasn't, he was kind of shy. I noticed an individual kind of over in the corner looking up at me when I was talking to a group of young people. And after talking to this group of individuals, I told them what the program would consist of, and that basically they would have to come down to the YMCA to participate in the program. They decided that maybe it was a pretty good deal. So my initial impression of Johnny wasn't really I wasn't really that impressed with him because he was kind of shy and retiring and very smallish. In the time that I was at the Y, we had tremendous athletes, tremendous student athletes that had gone on and played in college and in high school. And Johnny was as good, if not better, than any of those athletes in 3 sports, football, basketball, and baseball. In football, his talents were obvious. I used him as primarily as a running back and a little quarterback. In basketball, he was a point guard. Well, he just controlled the action. And in baseball, he was a shortstop. So he was a tremendously naturally gifted athlete. Johnny was tremendously tough and durable. In fact, pound for pound, he was probably the strongest and the toughest individual that I've ever been around. Whether you're talking about mental toughness or physical toughness, Johnny was tremendously strong. As a 10-year-old, as an 11-year-old, and viewing him in high school and in college, he probably I probably played, at 165? He probably was as strong as any 215-pounder as far as just having natural strength and integrity. As far as he was a winner. That's why I could describe him.
I remember coming up in Roberts Dairy when I first started. I started at Roberts Dairy, but I was too young to really be playing that first year, and so I broke my arm. And I was out, and I really actually didn't get started till the boys' club.
In 1963, when we opened the boys' club, Bill Stoniker, the gentleman I had talked about a moment ago, was a physical education director, and Bill and one, or maybe it might have been 2 other volunteers, were working with all this raw talent from this neighborhood to put together a football team. And I can remember kids like Jerry Moss and kids like Lindbergh White and a lot of names that people who followed Omaha sports really have kept up with. Tony Rosses and Willie Bob Johnsons and some of those kids. And a little scrawny guy named Johnny Rodgers, who was about all of 4'7" or 4'8" at the time. And I remember I'd go out on Sundays and we would just get killed, because teaching football at that level, you need people who can teach positions and work with kids, and particularly work with attitudes. But a few years ago, we had a little reunion of our football team, and Lindbergh's mother and Michael Carter's mother, who were 2 kids that played on the team, had some 8mm film of Johnny and the team in those days. And if you've seen the Oklahoma run on film in that 1971 game, we were looking at those runs at this little 8-year-old back in those days. And you could just point out, just figure out kids who have talent to just God-given ability to be great athletes. And we could tell at that time that there was something special in that little kid by the name of Johnny Rodgers.
When I first became aware of John Rodgers was the principal of Horseman High School, Eugene Skinner, called me one day and he said he had one heck of a little football player over there that I really should be thinking about because he wanted to come to Tech. And his name, of course, was Johnny Rodgers. And I hadn't heard of John or been associated with Horseman in any way. I didn't follow their program that close in those days. So when John finally did come over, everyone told me that John should be a quarterback. Well, I'm looking at this little kid about 4'5" and weighed about 110 pounds. And I couldn't see a quarterback there, but I had talked to Skinner and I knew of all his athletic skills. So about the second practice, we put him under the center, and John said, "Hut one, hut two." So right away, we made him a running back. Our first year with John was his sophomore year. He didn't come over as a freshman. And we used him as a cornerback on defense. And it didn't take the coaching staff long to realize that we had a great talent. At the end of the season, we decided we were playing Omaha Bishop Ryan, and we had a fairly comfortable lead. And we had a great back by the name of Russell Harrison that Johnny was backing up. So we put John in at the end of the ball game. The first time he carried the ball, went about 60 yards for a touchdown. Well, we can wait for next year to begin. John's had a lot of downers. People in this state really didn't appreciate John for the most part. They liked him on the football field, but I'll tell you, if the people knew John Rodgers that I knew, they would have adopted him as a son.
Nebraska came down and talked to me several times. Dickie Davis and Mike Green came over and talked to me, which were some very familiar names, with me at that time. And thought that it would be a good idea now if I did stay around home and to go where the people were really that were in my corner.
It wasn't too difficult to get John to go to Nebraska. And, of course, Coach Bob Devaney had seen undoubtedly films or had watched him play and knew the quality of a football player that he would be getting down there at Nebraska. So we recruited him and were successful in getting him to go down to Nebraska. And then I had the opportunity of watching him play down in Lincoln and seeing 76,000 fans come to their feet every time he got near the ball. And it was just amazing. I've seen some good football players, some great football players, but probably the most exciting football player I've ever seen was Johnny Rodgers.
Coach Osborne actually taught me the game. He taught me about the value of being in condition. I mean, Coach Osborne, we would practice the 2 hours that we normally practice, and then he and I would run around the field, and he would talk to me the whole time, and we'd run until he got tired. He very seldom got tired. Then he'd take me and he would throw passes to me for another 20 or 30 minutes. We had horseshoes and turnarounds where I'd have to turn my back to him and he'd call out, and when I turn around, the ball was there. But it made me a lot quicker. It made my catching abilities come up a tremendous amount. And the weight training program brought me up from like a 4.7 40 down to a 4.4 40, and it was a very consistent training. He taught me all that I knew about reading defenses, and although I was able to outrun or outmaneuver or finesse a lot of guys, he actually taught me how to make things a little bit easier by just knowing where the defenses actually were going to spread out to and where to lay down in the hole. And he actually gave me my education as far as football was concerned and knowing the game.
Well, Johnny was maybe the greatest pure athlete that we've ever had here. Just a guy that could make an impact in a football game, on a punt return, a pass reception, a reverse. He would have been a great defensive back. And Johnny didn't particularly like practice, but when it came time to play the games, there was no better guy to have on your side. Very, very tough. It's almost impossible to knock him out of the game no matter what you did to him. And had probably the greatest lateral movement I've ever seen in a football player. And so he really contributed greatly to Nebraska football.
If I had it to do all over again, I would, on my freshman year in college, me and 2 other guys, as a college prank, went down and took some money from a gas station. And I think a year later, they came and they picked me up for that, and I got 2 years probation and eventually got a pardon from the state of Nebraska for that. But that was the beginning of my career of being college football's bad boy, pretty much the extent of the negative things that I actually had done that was really severe. But because of this, everything that I've done has been tainted to some degree actually because of this, and it took me off on a direction that I never would have had experienced if I had not have been involved in that. And not taking serious about the responsibility that comes along with success, that I made life a lot tougher on me than it actually would have to be. And I was actually tested tremendously for it. I don't think that it's something that's going to, with the age of the computer, it's nothing that's ever going to go away. And it's something that I think that all young people should look at in their early stages, because not knowing that, life goes by pretty fast, but it's a pretty long deal, and you really can't get over or get past anything. You learn from your good things, you learn from the bad. You know what not to do as well as what to do. But I think of all the things that I could think of, that would be first and foremost. And the second one, maybe I learned how to have a little bit better driving record. Coach Devaney said I could do everything but drive. As I think back to that cold day in Oklahoma, it was probably the biggest football game of my whole life. I think no way in the world that we knew then that it was going to mean as much to as many people as it still represents. We knew that if we beat Oklahoma, that we would probably be the national champions. We hadn't went to the bowl games yet, but we knew whoever did go, win that game was going to go to the national champion. And there was something Greg Pruitt and I had some things going between the two of us too, because we were both running for the Heisman. Nebraska was running for against Oklahoma. We were both 1 and 2. I think Colorado at that time was a number 3. And we knew that we win football games on big plays, and you have to have, big plays and try to keep the other team from making big plays. I tried to get big plays whenever I had an opportunity, and I was very fortunate on that particular day. And I think in the first quarter, I very rarely fair caught, the football. And they came down and they still say I probably should have fair caught that particular football, but you got to pretty much take some chances. And I took some chances on that, and I was about as nervous as I've ever been in my whole life. I think that I was throwing up in the first quarter all the way up until halftime, just strictly, from the nerve situation. But we had some things to do, and I was very fortunate I was able to lend my small part to it, and it's running a punt return that seems to be the most talked about football run here, at least in Nebraska, and a lot of the people around the United States think so. And we went on now to have what they've termed as the game of the century, one of the best football games that they've had in 100 years. And that's really saying a lot for us, since we're still all young people, 100 years of football going, and I don't know how long those things will last, the game will last, the records will last, but it's been one of the most rewarding experiences to go on for 20 years past, and to see that people still give you that much recognition and credit, for excellence, and that people, you dare to be great really can.
The biggest memory, most vivid in my mind, of course, Johnny's punt return and that last drive with Jeff Kinney and things like that. You don't forget those. But my most vivid memory, I guess, was standing on the sidelines with about 3 or 4 minutes to go, and Nebraska was driving towards victory, and I was standing here like I am now with my hands in my pocket, and I'm saying to myself, don't have a heart attack, don't have a stroke, Fox, it's just a game. If you lose, let's be good about it and all that stuff. And I was my heart was going about 8 million miles an hour, and a guy from a Chevrolet PR department ran up to me and grabbed me and said, "Fox, how can you be calm at a time like this?" So I wasn't calm, believe me, but Johnny was a great force in that game with that third down. I think I'll always remember that third down catch that kept that drive alive. It was a tough catch, and of course that was his specialty, was the tough catch. Johnny Rodgers is the best football player I've ever seen. I've seen probably maybe better running backs than Billy Sims or Hopalong Cassidy or something, and I've never seen a better receiver. But for overall football player, just whatever job he took on, he did a magnificent job at. He always came to play on Saturday. He was never injured. He didn't miss playing time. He showed up and gave it everything he had. He was just I think if you'd have put him at left guard, he'd have probably made all Big 8. He just was that type of a competitor. He wanted to win and did everything he could, and he was just a great football player. The testimony to that is that Orange Bowl game against Notre Dame when Bob put him at I-back, and he produced 5 touchdowns. He caught a couple, threw one, ran for a punt return. I mean, the guy was just a great, great football player, and he's the only player that I've ever seen in all the years I've been watching that every time he touched the ball, everybody in the stadium got ready to stand up. I mean, he just had that electrifying quality about him.
Coach Devaney was like my father. Coach Devaney really gave me a lot of good advice coming up. He gave me a lot of good direction on things, and he was the kind of guy that I think I played harder for Coach Devaney than I actually played for myself. If I made a mistake or I did something that was out of the norm, I felt worse because what he'd think about it more so than the significance of what actually had done to me. And it was never a time that I asked Coach Devaney for any help or any assistance or any direction that he was never really there for me. I really didn't know my father until I was about 18, 19 years old. So I met Coach Devaney prior to actually even meeting my father. And he still holds a pretty significant role in my life to this day.
I've coached and I've seen a lot of great football players around my different stints in college and in high school and around the country. And I think thinking of any one football player, if I had to say, was the better football player, the best football player that I've ever coached, I would say Johnny Rodgers. I think John was a guy that made the most use of his ability on the football field. He was not real big, he was not exceptionally fast, but he had probably the finest hands as far as catching a football and holding on to it of anybody that I have ever seen on a football field. And along with that, John had the abilities to move laterally as well as I have seen anybody. He could throw a ball, which he demonstrated in a couple of games in his senior year. And he was just a very fine all-around offensive football player, as I say, the best I have seen.
know how long the records will last, but it's been one of the most rewarding experiences to go on for 20 years past, and to see that people still give you that much recognition and credit, you know, for excellence, and the people, you know, you dare to be great, you really can.
There's the whistle. We're ready to play football. Bellar's kick is away, and it's a high end over ender into that wind. Johnny Rodgers takes it at the 2. He runs out to the 5, to the 10, to the 15, to the 20, the 30. He's to the 40. He's going to go all the way. Johnny Rodgers, man, woman, and child, he's gone. Toledo, 98 yards right down the football field. He took it up to 2, came straight up the middle to about the 20. Then he veered to his left. He got some great blocks, broke one tackle, and then cut to his right back into the middle of the field, went all the way to score, and the kick by Sanger is good. Johnny the Jet Rodgers.